So welcome to our first Take 10 with 4-H. And I'm Cheryl Butterfield with the New Mexico State 4-H agent for volunteer and leadership development with New Mexico 4-H. And this Take 10 was created as an idea sharing and volunteer resource at the recommendation from our volunteer development work group, which is made up of agents from all 4 districts in the state of New Mexico. So today's topic is club meetings. What does a club meeting look like? So as we look at 4-H, we need to remember it is a 4-H youth development program, and club meetings are just a tool that we use to develop life skills in our kids. So when we're thinking about our club meeting, we want to have fun and effective club meetings that are efficient, but it starts with planning meetings with the end goal in mind. What are we planning to get done? How are we going to get there? And who is a part of that planning process? So a great resource we have is in our New Mexico 4-H Club Leaders Handbook called Fun and Effective Meetings. It's a resource from Oregon State University Extension 4-H, and it breaks the meeting into 3 components, which is recreation, education, and business, and then gives some time frames for each one of those categories. One of the things, we don't have to have a format that we follow exactly. It can be flexible, but to have a framework that we work within. And when our club meetings, we need to think about the environment. And with the 4 concepts of 4-H, we have our belonging, independence, mastery, and generosity that should be a part of our 4-H club meetings. And this particular format can help us accomplish that and make those experiences for our youth are ones we're wanting to have for those kids. So as we look forward to how do we get to that fun and effective meeting? It starts with planning. And these resources may seem very simple. And as I look back on my career as a 4-H leader, I guess you a career, my time, I wish I would have used these more frequently when I was trying to do things. Because I think when we plan, we have an idea where we're going and how we're going to get there. And it doesn't have to be real detailed. This is another resource in our Club Leader Handbook. And it just looks at the year and what is our business, our program, recreation agenda is going to be. Community service project, special events. So maybe in October, we're like, okay, this is our beginning, and this is what we're going to do. We used to do pumpkin carving. So that was a fun thing that we could have put each year if the kids, and we'll talk about who's in the planning group, want to do that. November was elections. So there was kind of a flow of how it normally went. And then in June, we usually didn't meet because how busy June got with projects and district contests and such. And July was always a fun thing. We had swim parties or went to a fun park. So just that overview of where are we going and what do we want to get done. Then we can get more detailed when it comes to the actual monthly meeting. We can look, this is a great resource. And I know some of us are going, well, I know this, why are you showing this? And if you grew up in 4-H, and I happen to grow up in a very structured program, this is old hat for me. I was like, oh yeah, I know this stuff. But if you've never been a part of 4-H, or maybe it wasn't structured, it's a great resource to help outline what are the components within the meeting. And it may seem simple. Your call to order has your Pledge of Allegiance and a 4-H pledge. We used to sing the 4-H song. I will not sing that for you because it might not be real fun for you. And I probably didn't do it very good then either, but as a little kid, we all belted it out. And then maybe they have an opening activity. That's flexible in terms of whether you want to have the activity. Usually you start with your pledges. Roll call. Maybe you want to have the kids answer a certain way. We used to do favorite color, anything to get them to speak up in front of others, trying to build on that public speaking piece. We may also do, what is your favorite project? In October, what's your favorite candy, or what do you want to dress up as? So, just whatever the kids came up with these all the time. So whatever they would like to use was always fun. Simple reading a minutes, your secretary reads the minutes, your treasurer gives the report. You go through your old business, new business, adjourn. Now the program may be before your adjournment, but a lot of times we have adjourned so that the program's after. And that we'll talk about, that can be a wide variety of different things. Maybe you want to be doing a tour, might be the activity. Maybe the program is actually a demonstration from one of the kids, or for a project that the club has as a group. So there's a whole lot of different things the program for that educational piece can be comprised of. And then the recreation. That is a big part of that belonging you saw earlier. How do we get kids to feel belonging? Well, they do things together, and those fun games that they do are a big piece of that. Now, when you have the recreation, may depend on your particular group. If you have a younger group, you may want to do recreation right out of the bat because they need to get that energy out so that they might sit down. If you have an older group, I know we would be doing recreation so our older kids could get done with practice and get to the meeting. And so we're trying to buy a little time, but then sometimes they're coming in and they're so extremely hungry, getting them to focus was difficult. So where do you have your snack? And maybe you're having it right after school. Well, if it's right after school, those kids may need a snack. So that's figuring out what works best for your club. There's nothing that says you have to do it in a certain order. But who do I involve in these things? We talked a little bit about the annual planning. So when we think about that, the club officers and members, leaders and parents, if you bring everybody in, then they're more likely to want to participate when you're a part of the planning piece. So this doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. As you saw, it could just be picking those big chunks and placing them on the calendar. And maybe it's even down to some suggestions for the July, so that maybe you can form a committee and start looking into what are the details if we wanted to go to a fun park versus a swimming pool. I mean, just little things like that, but involving everybody so that they have a part of that belonging piece. The monthly meetings, that's a little narrower, smaller group. You want your club officers and your organizational leaders. But this may also include, if you have a guest speaker, then you need to contact them and figure out what they need. You may also, if you have different hosts each month, a different family, and it's maybe you're going to their houses, some clubs do that, then you'd want to include them because they're a part of that planning piece. So overall, when you look, we talked a lot about planning, but when you're looking at this is a great resource as well in the handbook, just to remind you of some little things. Do officers and leaders check plans before the meeting? Are you getting together and going over things? Is everything ready? Does the president call the meeting to order and run it efficiently? I'm a real, I don't know what kind of type A personality you might say. It drives me crazy when things drag. Let's do it and get it done. I want time for discussion, but I don't want it to be very drawn out. Is it organized, announcements? And does everybody get those announcements either written, verbally? How are you going to do those things? So you do the involvement. Again, just a bigger, broader look at this, introducing your guests, making sure everybody feels welcome, that recreation, getting to know each other. Now, here's the key. Do the officers avoid talking the whole time? Do the leaders avoid doing all the talking? And I'm speaking from personal experience because I know my personality. What do you need to do as a leader to step back? And I actually stepped to the back of the room. It was a little harder, and I felt, it's rude to shout from the back to interject. But if I felt there was need, I would move to the front, and they would see me and they would recognize me. But you know what I've learned working with the state leadership team is that the more I prepare them, the more organized, the more ready they are, the less they need me, which is really a cool feeling for them to be able to run that meeting without me. Now, because they need to have the confidence, but it's also helping to figure out how to get all those members to be able to feel like they can be involved and speak up and make the motions or whatever they're doing at that time. So it takes work. It takes, figuring out your personality as a leader, but actually working with those kids and getting them prepared for those roles. So balance, is it the business meeting short and snappy? Do you have the education? I'll be honest, I wasn't good at balance. I might have been heavy on one or the other. We didn't always have all three. What I know now, I would be a much better leader, to be honest. I didn't use these resources. So learn from my mistakes and how to do better. But then variety, and we talked about making them fun and learning, and maybe you have tours for your education, and maybe you have demonstrations, or you go to the swimming pool, but there's a little bit of variety. There's a consistency because that's part of that belonging. When you know what to expect when you go, that's an important piece of that as well. So all this great information is actually in our 4-H Club Leaders Handbook. I just pulled out pieces that were very specific to this topic. And then I will also place this video and these pieces on the website so you can go back and just pull out what you may need rather than having to go through the whole document. But at the same time, there are other resources. So you can go to our webpage, New Mexico State 4-H, and look at all the great things that are there. So we're a small group, but I would like to have any, I call them club meeting hacks that have worked well for you. If you would put those in the chat, because I would like to see what is it that others are doing, because that's the whole idea behind what we're doing with this idea sharing, is that we've got a lot of great ideas and things happening out there that we want to share. And I'm gonna have to stop sharing so I can see my chat better. Maybe here it is. There we go. And I apologize if there's lots of noise in the background because it never fails whenever you're trying to do something of noise. Game in the beginning, the kids are more likely to talk. It relaxes them. I mean, they kind of just get rid of that little wall. I think you're right. I like that idea of having a game. To food at the end makes them stay, absolutely. Another hack that I always found is when they're in charge of things, if they have to stay and help clean up, and you rotate who does that, then that helps make them feel more involved. Like, oh, it's my job. I have to clean up today. Or we're doing the snack, and they're always so excited to be the snack more so than clean up. But all right. Well, thank you for sharing. Any others you may like to share? I know this is a quick, I take 10. And so the idea was to talk for about 5 to 7 minutes, but to let y'all share anything, if you have anything else you'd want to share. But I also realize part of take 10 is trying to stay within that time frame as well.